Coming up on this week's episode of CEO Yourself.
I didn't quite stop when my dad passed away when I was younger. So my dad passed away when I was 13. So I didn't stop. I just started, or rather, I just kept going. Everyone kept asking if everything was okay. Everything was okay. I didn't cry. I didn't process it because...
Pei Chan is a woman in finance whose joy hustle is to work as a breathwork coach. On today's episode of CEO Yourself, we deep dive her CEO superpower, empowerment through breath. Pei, welcome to CEO Yourself.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to have you here. What I'm most excited about is using this episode as a tool for our listeners and our community to come back to our breath. And with that in mind, I want to start with a breathing exercise of your choice.
Shall we?
Yeah, but I guess to encourage the listener to come into this moment and to be present in this moment and to return to their breath.
Okay. I think we need some as well with this episode. So shall we put our hands on our belly and let's just gently close our eyes. And just bring your breath down to your belly. Taking a few breaths here. Inhale. And exhale. Another inhale. And letting go of the thinking mind. Letting go of your morning, your afternoon. Just being here in the here and the now. Taking another breath. And letting go of all outcomes. Gently come back to your breath if you've drifted off. And another breath here. And let out with a gentle sigh. And gently open your eyes. And welcome back.
Thank you so much for being here, Pei, and for that beautiful exercise.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's so easy to forget to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing it often throughout the day. Why is the breath so important?
So you know what? I think it's the one thing that we have forgotten to use or forgotten that is so important because throughout our lives we hold our breath, like you said, and it's the one thing that we cannot delegate to someone else. So someone else cannot breathe for us or they cannot actually pass a moment for us. So I think a lot of people actually forget that importance of the breath because how we breathe is how we live our life. If you breathe really shallowly or you breathe in only a certain part of your body, I know we did a breath exercise earlier as well. So when you only breathe in certain parts of your body, you really restrict yourself. You restrict your capacity in terms of breathing capacity, physically, and also mentally, you also restrict yourself in terms of how you experience life as well. And, we can go into more examples as well. Some people are overachiever, and I'm one. And overachievers tend to just go and go and go. And their breath are always very forced or very controlled because that's how they, keep themselves in check and that's how they achieve. Or rather, that's how they perceive they achieve. And it's really letting go of that control and just allowing life to happen. Because remember, I'm just talking about overachievers because that's my breath pattern. And overachievers tend to want to be in control, like I said. And we don't believe that once we let go of control, things would actually happen for us. And I'm sure you believe in this as well, and you probably resonate with this. Once we let go of control and allow the universe to actually happen for us, and just believe that things would happen. I'm not saying you sit there and you wait for things to happen. Just trust that whatever that you want in life would happen, right? Because it's the intention or the manifestation that comes behind that. So once you have that, you would go towards your goal. So it's not about being stressed in the journey, but it's actually enjoying the journey, getting to the goals. And with overachievers as well, you tend to get to a goal or milestone and you think, actually, you know what? It's not a big deal. I'm just going to go to the next one. You don't actually celebrate the milestone. You don't celebrate yourself. You don't appreciate yourself. So I think for overachievers in particular, really slow down, believe in yourself, and delegate the control. And delegating the control means saying yes to help. As simple as someone actually helping you with an admin task. So it's as simple as that.
I think so many of our listeners in our community that will resonate with quite deeply.
I think there are a lot of A-types or type A's
and
out there.
It definitely hits home for me. what was it in your life? What was the moment that brought you to this breath work?
So it wasn't obvious. So I started my career in finance, and I grew up in Singapore in Asia. So I didn't quite stop when my dad passed away when I was younger. So my dad passed away when I was 13. So I didn't stop. I just started, or rather, I just kept going. Everyone kept asking if everything was okay. Everything was okay. I didn't cry. I didn't process it because at that point, we were 3 women in the family. My brother was in Australia. And my sister was saying, hey, we can't be weak. We have to be strong, which understandable because you don't want the world to see that you're weak. So that's how we live our life. We just showed a really strong front. Everything was perfect. And I didn't cry in the funeral. So imagine the guilt that is in my system. But I didn't understand that. So I just continued going, played sports because I wanted to travel the world. So I played competitively in a sport called floorball, which is a Scandinavian sport. Then at 21, 22, I decided I want to come to London. So that's, again, I escaped from my life in a way. Then I came to London, started achieving. It's only in my early 30s that I decided that, or rather I realized that I bought a place. I got my qualification in finance. I had everything that I wanted, all the milestones that I wanted, but yet something was missing. And then I had this helpline card on my desk at work. It's a benefit at work. And I thought, maybe I should call the helpline. But there was a lot of shame as well because, again, growing up in Asia, you don't talk about emotions. You don't talk about therapy because therapy, healing were not in my vocabulary. Never. So at that point, I was like, shit, do I actually go into the meeting room? So I went into the meeting room, called the hotline, and then they asked me if I wanted to, if I have any thoughts of killing myself or if I actually feel that I don't want to wake up in the morning. And you know what? I didn't want to kill myself. I was very sure about that. But I had a lot of stress and a lot of resistance waking up in the morning. Not because I had a bad life, but I had so much anxiety and stress that I didn't understand why. And then I started therapy. I went to the therapist and she said, you need to go through the grief again. And I was like, you're crazy. Look at me. I'm perfect. Do I look like I'm going through grief? So I ran away from her and I thought she was crazy. But I went back to her again. I'm still seeing her 8 years on. And fast forward, I started doing breathwork. Literally, I didn't know what breathwork was at that point. I just thought it was a meditation session. So I went with a full makeup on, beautiful dress, and I just thought I'm just going to sit there and meditate. Oh my God, it was the most cathartic session. I was crying. I went back to the funeral. I really processed the grief that when my dad passed away. And then, again, I didn't believe in it because I thought, I needed to pay a lot of money to actually fix myself. So breath is free, right? So at that point, I was like, no, not doing it. So, but I actually kept going back every 3 months to get a fix. And then 2 years later, I lost my job. I was made redundant. And I was flawed. Literally, I was paralyzed with shame. And don't forget, I was also really arrogant in life. I was ignoring my friends because I had a high-flying career. I was flying around the world because of work, and I just thought, oh my God, this perfect life has just crumbled down. And there was no signal in terms of the redundancy or losing my job. And the usual thing with losing your identity and not knowing what to do, worried about financial security. And I didn't sleep or eat for like a few days. And I was thinking, what's going on? At that point, I was just a little bit disappointed with myself, and I thought, come on, you can do better than this. So I went back to my therapist and I said to her, fix me. I just sat there and I said, fix me. And she's like, I can't fix you. We have to talk through this. And at a point I was like, you know what, I can't talk anymore because I've gone through so many years of therapy. And I don't know if you have gone through therapy, but therapy is all about talk and you go through in cycles, right? And it's really only when you integrate with the traumas or the experiences in your life that you then build this awareness. Awareness is the first step, and then you have to integrate with it as well. So then I went back to breathwork again. That's when I thought, you know what, it humbled me so much, and I realized that it's really not the money. It's really not anything else. It's really just me coming back to myself and my breath. And that's it. And it's as simple as that. And I started training, or rather I started my journey in terms of going through a seminar to learn about my breath, to really process all the experiences in my life. The grief is the top layer of what I needed to heal or what I needed to go through. And then there is the domestic violence that was happening before 13 as well. But at that point, I didn't think it was my story either. So it's crazy how you just suppress everything. And again, like I said, nobody talks about all this thing, not in my corporate job, not in my friend circle. Like nobody talks about grief, nobody talk about being weak, or nobody talk about their feelings. So I was like, okay, so everyone is normal, nobody has any problems. I remember going into the therapy room and I said to her, why am I the only person feeling this? And she said to me, do you think I sit here all day with you, or like with only one client, which is yours? She's like, everyone has a problem. And that's when I realized that, you know what, and I just leave life in a little bit of a bubble. And that bubble was so closed off and I just didn't know how to express myself. So then going back to the training, started doing breath work, and I just realized that it's really that simple. And what I've delegated to everyone else, whether it's my therapist, I said earlier about my chiropractor, I have a physiotherapist, I have so many people trying to fix my body and my feelings and everything, but I forgot to come home to myself. And I think breathwork essentially brings you back to yourself, to the core, and being comfortable with being yourself. Remember I said earlier that I was always running away from myself. I ran from, the funeral, then I started playing sports, I came to London, started achieving, and then I was always running. So breathwork made me realize that I was running away from myself, even though I was super independent, doing solo trips, and everyone looks at me and thinks she has everything. Why would she be upset? And everyone would be saying, oh, you know what, there's something wrong with her. Why is she single? Why is she this? And there's so many societal misconceptions or perceptions that you need to fit a certain box because you are really successful and you can't have any emotions.
It's so generous of you to share snippets of your story and to be so vulnerable. I feel that there is a kind of revolution happening, particularly for women around me, where we are becoming more and more open with what we've been through and where we're at. Something I'm super intrigued by is I have a strong belief that we store away energy in our bodies and it plays out physically when we disregard it. Do you feel that using the breath we can heal those little pockets we've put away?
100%. So this breath work that I do actually uses acupressure. And even if you don't use acupressure, you actually get to the parts where you don't breathe into. And it's really important to actually go into the parts that you have ignored or hidden, because those are the parts that you have suppressed or repressed as a kid or even as an adult. So I'm just going to give you a really simple example and maybe a really silly one. A kid falling down on the street, something that we will look at it and think, it's nothing, right? The kid will just pick himself up or herself up and life goes on. But in her eyes or in his eyes, that's a big trauma. They fall and it's a big trauma, right? Remember, they are so tiny and they think that the fall is actually a big trauma for them. But as adults, we look at experiences like this and we think that, okay, you know what, it's just a small incident. And what I realized with my clients is when we bring them back to these memories, or rather, I'm not the one bringing them back. It's actually their subconscious mind that is bringing them back to experiences, trauma. And I use a really silly one, but they're bigger ones, right? Like I said to you, the domestic violence, the bullying, the grief. So what happens is breathwork brings you back to that because you access your memories in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind would only bring you there when you're ready to face them. And some clients would say, I want to resolve that breakup. I want to get through that breakup. But it's actually not the breakup that is causing it. It's what is triggering that feeling of loss, of that feeling of abandonment. What is it? So normally it brings you back to the experiences or the traumas that you have stored in your body. So you mentioned about energy being stored in your body. So energy, sensation, and tension are all stored in our body, right? I don't know if you read the book, The Body Holds the Score. And every time we suppress an emotion, when we hold on to our breath, we suppress something in our body. And when we use breath work and to release the tension, that's when you actually integrate with the emotion or the experience or the tension. But the first thing we do when we actually we feel an emotion is that we hold on to it again, right? So I'm sure when we cry, we actually hold on to our breath again, right? Even though I'm telling you, hey, cry and allow yourself to feel, and I do that the same thing as well. The first thing we do is we hold on to our breath. Once you hold on to your breath again, it gets suppressed again. So what you really want to do when moments like this come up is to breathe through the moment, to really experience it and to really face it and not suppress it or repress it again. I use repression because sometimes you don't know that you are doing it, right? Kids especially, because kids, 0 to 7, they don't really know what's going on in the world, and they don't really understand how they should behave or how they shouldn't behave. So when someone tells them, hey, you're too loud, shut up, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't cry, they just think, okay, the next time when I do this, I shouldn't do this, so I repress it. And for kids, it's mostly a repression, and for adults, it's mostly a suppression. And yes, energy that do get stuck in your body, and you really want to release it. And breathwork is one great tool to do it, because we can do meditation for hours and hours, and it may come up because when you sit still for a long time, all the pains and all the tension would come up by default. But a lot of us don't have the 5 hours or the 6 hours to sit under the tree, or to sit in your living room and get it out, right? So I think active breathwork really is the solution to it, because it's so efficient and it gets you there. And we're not rushing it either. Remember, I said that you're always in control in a way, because your subconscious mind will only bring you there if you're ready. So some people might think, I don't want to face it yet. You wouldn't face it unless you're ready to face it.
For those out there, and I'm not just going to say women, I'm going to say men as well, when you are in a corporate environment, often we have to have incredibly challenging conversations, whether it be with a boss or a colleague. It might even be outside of the corporate world. It might be in your relationship or at home. How can we positively channel difficult emotions when, for example, you might not want to cry or raise your voice? How can you utilize the breath to move that energy and emotion through so that it isn't suppressed in the body?
Yeah. And I wish more people cry at work, but I know it's not appropriate. But so where do you feel your sensations when you have these difficult moments? Do you feel the tightness in your chest, or do you feel it in your belly, for example?
I get a sore stomach.
You get a sore stomach. Mm-hmm. So the best thing to do is really to focus on that sensation, because an emotion or a feeling is a sensation, right? And a sensation in your body. And what you want to do is to use your breath. And again, ground yourself with your breath and bring it down to your belly. And I always say down to your belly, because that's when you really want to use your diaphragm to initiate the breath. And when you ground yourself down to your belly, that's when you say that it's safe to be in your body, right? Most people who are anxious, so for example, if you're going into a difficult conversation with a partner, with a colleague, the first thing you do is you breathe in your chest, because that's when you're like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I'm gonna show emotions. I don't want to show emotions. So the first thing we do is to hold our breath in our chest. And that's when you are not grounded in your body. So we really want to bring the breath down to your belly and breathe into that sensation. Because most people, what they do is they avoid the feeling, because you just think, okay, you know what? I just hope that I wouldn't show any emotions.
So can you give us an example now?
Yeah, of course. So
I'm commuting to work. I'm going to go in and quit or ask my boss for a pay rise. I'm extremely nervous, or, I'm having to confront my boyfriend about something very difficult. What is a breathing exercise I can use in this moment to go into it in a more grounded, emotionally aware way?
Okay. And let's just close our eyes, and let's just think of one situation or anything that you want to resolve for going into work, your day, and just feel this sensation in your body. Where is the tightness in your body? And just breathe into this sensation. And just think about the trigger. How is the trigger making you feel? Acknowledge this feeling, this sensation. And just acknowledging that it's okay to feel this way. And breathe into this. And just allow your breath to dissolve this sensation. To dissolve the tightness or the knots that is in your belly or your chest. And take a few deep breaths here and release the tension here. And just giving yourself full permission to feel this. Coming back to your breath. And standing in your power. And trusting your breath. And just reminding yourself, Whenever you feel this way, you can always ground yourself back with your breath, locating the sensation in your body and just dissolving it with your breath. And gently come back whenever you're ready, opening your eyes.
It's so beautifully simplistic that just a few seconds, like gratitude, it just alleviates the ego, but it is such a deep form of meditation. We haven't worked together for that long, but in the work we've done together, no matter how tired I am, I wake up feeling so refreshed and energized. What is the differentiation between meditation and this breath work?
So meditation, I would say, you know what, breathwork is also a type of meditation, right? But breathwork is actually a little bit more active. So breathwork brings you to that meditative state, which is, as you know that feeling of being in that, I guess, that theta moment where you are neither sleeping or you're awake. So it's a great moment. But breathwork brings you much deeper because it's an active breathwork. So when you then get into an active, connected, conscious breathwork, when you are present with yourself, that's the difference between meditation and breathwork, right? So you are really present with yourself, because when you're in the meditative state, your thoughts can still go somewhere. But if you're doing an active, conscious breath, your thoughts can't really go anywhere, because you kind of have to concentrate on the breath. And once you let go of the control with the breath, because in the beginning you're going to think, okay, I have to breathe properly, I have to do this, I have to do that. And once you start letting go of the control, and once you then trust your own breath and yourself, that's when your breath breathes you. That is the state that we want to get to, where you are literally letting go of all the control, you're surrendering, or you have surrendered, and you just allow yourself to do, or your breath to do the work. So that's the difference between meditation and breathwork. Breathwork is more active, as you said, it's a lot of work in a way.
It's so such an important practice.
Yeah, and you really have to ground yourself in the present moment. Obviously, we drift off as well, but it's just really reminding yourself to come back to your breath.
Mm-hmm. Now, moving away from the specifics of breath work, what I find fascinating about you is that you do work in finance, mm-hmm. and this is you had an amazing term for it. This is your joy hustle. For the listener out there who is also working in a different field but has a joy hustle, how can you encourage them to bring it to life? I know that's what we felt we had such similarities with. How can they bring it to life, pursue it, bring their joy hustle hopefully eventually to the forefront?
And, I think a lot of people think I actually called it side hustle before. It's only in the recent 3 months that I call it joy hustle. And anything that brings you passion, I think, especially, I would just talk about my finance background. And I guess at that point I was working and still working long hours. And this joy hustle really brings me a lot of love and a lot of compassion towards myself and also others. And for me to see people in such a vulnerable state, it's really humbling. And I find it's such a gift, because I've never been able to do that. And for me to be able to hold a space for someone to do that, it's incredible. So when I first started the Joy Hustle, it was like a minefield. I was thinking, how do I even start? How do I set up a company? How do I do this? How do I set up a website? How do I start social media? And I didn't know anything about this, even though, I built a lot of, projects at work, and I built a lot of businesses at work. But this really floored me. I was thinking, oh my God, I really don't know what to do. The first thing to do is to really start. Start small. And I think we both, are quite similar in the sense that start small and do something small every day to get you there.
And let go of the perfectionism.
And, for me, it was like, I need a perfect website before I can go live. I need a perfect space before I can see clients. Or I need a perfect social media before I can do that. But once you start, if you start with your passion, or once you come with your heart and your passion, everything would flow. Then you start seeing that, there's so many signals in life. People saying, actually, I just started a business. I use this accountant. I use this lawyer. I use this. Things will start to flow. You just have to start. Once you start, then you put the energy out there that you're ready to do it. And don't belittle what you have done in your corporate world or your past experience as well. And I think what I thought was that they are so different that I can't actually put or merge them together. But a lot of things I do at work is actually applicable to what I do in terms of the business, like how I then organize my work. It's little things like that, using Google Docs, using Kanban boards, and how do I be organized with my work, with my scheduling. So there's so many things that you can automate away. You don't always have to do a follow-up emails physically. You can actually automate that with your website. There's so many things that you can automate away to make yourself or make your life better or make your day better. So
Tell us some of them. What are your top efficiency tips?
So, a lot of time I need a lot of information from my clients, and I don't want to spend like 3 hours talking about it in the session because we don't have that 3 hours either, right? So the first thing I'll do is I'll send out an automated form for them to fill in so that I really know about them before they come in. So I think a lot of people actually then either send a form to the clients and then for them to fill it manually and then send it back. There's so many automation that you can do via whether it's Google Forms or whether it's your website. So there are a lot of features that you can. I use Squarespace, so that's the automation that I do, and the follow-ups from Squarespace as well. There's so many follow-ups, emails or notifications that you can use from the website. So I don't have to worry that I have to send an email to my client in 24 hours or in 48 hours. So those are the things that you can automate and then you can enjoy the things that you really enjoy doing, which is seeing clients or building fun things for your clients and also your business as well.
I love the word joy hustle that you've come up with because it is the greatest joy. And I've touched on this before. In my solo episode, I talked about how fulfilling your purpose and being in line with your calling produces such joy that for those listening, what words of advice would you have for them if they're feeling discomfort and unhappiness in their day-to-day job and they have a little niggling idea?
To do it. Just do it. Just do it. And start with something small. And even if you need to collaborate with someone or even if you need to do it in somebody else's name, start something. Do it. And when that brings you that little joy, then you will want more and you will want more. And then eventually you probably open up to kind of do it yourself in your own name. But, if you can do it in your own name, do it. Start small. It doesn't have to be big. And that's my own lesson anyways. But, yeah. And I think with people with a lot of success in life, they probably think that they want to get there at the same speed or, they want the same success. Or me, I really want the same success I have in finance. But you realize that, what I did in finance is like over 17 years. Right? So what I'm doing with Breathwork and the wellness space is going to take me time, maybe not 17 years, hopefully, but it's going to take time there and have the patience and the compassion towards yourself as well.
And for the overachievers out there like us who have to set their perfectionism to the side and just put it out there and just do it, how can we use the breath to overcome that? Because that's something I've found really difficult.
And you know what I would say, the overachiever, we didn't plan this, but we're going to do this. So I mentioned about tension in your body, right? And the overachiever tend to hold their tension or the stress in the solar plexus. Do you know where the solar plexus is? So it's just underneath the sternum, just in between the rib cages. So overachievers or, people who are very much in control. And if you really want to release this control, you can just press on this and bring yourself back to your breath. There's no way you can hold your breath if you're actually pressing in this area. Wow. Right? Because that's where your diaphragm is. And like I said earlier, when you hold your breath, it's not you holding your breath. It's actually you contracting your diaphragm and not allowing your lungs to move, right? So because overachievers tend to want to be in control and they tend to control the diaphragm muscle. So when you press on this area and when you come back to your breath, there's no way you can control. And that's when you surrender and just allow yourself to trust the moment, trust yourself, trust your own abilities. And overachievers out there, you get there, you get things done. So it's really trusting yourself and letting go of that control. It's really not trusting others, but trusting yourself.
What about the practicalities for you of having a joy hustle and having a big job in finance that requires you to travel? How do you manage your time?
So I see clients in the evenings, and I probably can't do like for 4 or 5 hours. I can probably see one client an evening. And when I first started doing this, I opened my calendar for I would say 6 or 7 days a week. And I thought, by opening it, I give everyone options. But when you open your calendar this wide, you're also telling yourself that you can't rest. So what I've done is I've actually restricted it to 3 days a week because that's when I know that I can actually commit to this 3 days a week in terms of dinners or in terms of social plans. I plan it around that. I see clients in the weekend. I see clients in the evening. And I am very efficient. I'm very efficient with my time. And I actually started a morning routine where I actually do a lot of the things that I want to do with the business in the morning before I start work. And that gives me a lot of time at work, because that means that I'm not worrying about, oh, I have to log off at this time to do this. And so that gives me a lot of space in my life, even though I'm working really long hours still. And
so you're very boundaried.
Yes, exactly.
And
so,
tell the audience, how should they implement a routine in their life from your perspective?
So you know what? I started a 5 a.m. routine. We talked about this as well, and I've just started it, and it's been 3 months, and I love it. I probably don't do 5 a.m. every day. I'll probably do like 5:30 to 6. I wake up. I do a little bit of a movement class or online, and then I do my meditation and I do my breath work. Then I do a little bit of journaling, or I do a little bit of reading. Then probably about 7:30, I'll start my kind of INMI Space work. And then by 8:15, I will then kind of go to my desk at home, or if I have to go into work, then that's when I start my finance day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So, and you know what? And I love it, because before I was always squeezing things in between and throughout the day or after work. And now I know that by 8 a.m. or 8:15, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm done with the day. As in, I'm done with exercise, I'm done with meditation, I'm done with breath work.
And it's amazing what you can achieve in an hour for your joy hustle in the morning as well.
Yeah, exactly, when you're super focused as well.
So, Pei, it's been such a wonderful conversation today. I'm so grateful for your time. I always close with a question. What is your legacy piece of advice, how you would want to be remembered?
I want everyone to know that you have a superpower, which is your breath, and no one can take that away from you, and you can't delegate that away, and no one can breathe for you. So remember that you have this superpower, which is as simple as your breath.
That's so wonderful. Thank you. How can the listener find you, work with you, access all that you're doing?
So you can come onto my website, which is called INMI.space. So it's INMI. And my Instagram is the same as well, which is INMI.space. And I actually have workshops that I run, which is charity-based. It's called the Breath Movement. And I just thought, everyone needs an excuse for self-care. So why don't we use charity as an excuse? So you can come to me for a one-to-one, which is a little bit more in-depth, because we look at your breath pattern and we do a breath analysis, and then we kind of try to re-engineer your breath, which you experienced earlier. And in the workshop setting, it's a little bit kind of more open, and you probably don't get as much facilitation in a workshop, but it's a great space to actually try breathwork if you're not familiar with it or you're skeptical about it. So it's a great, that's how I tried breathwork as well, through a workshop setting.
I have found your work to be so very moving and ironically so energizing.
Yeah.
That momentary rest, going within, learning how to breathe properly, it feels as if I'd been asleep for days.
Yeah. It's incredible, right? The amount of rest that you have when you get into this. And I think people who are having problems with sleep, you can tell how deep you go with this and how your parasympathetic system really rest, and then you allow yourself to rest, and at night you tend to be able to rest a little bit better.
Just beautiful. And I hope everyone out there takes a deep breath and learns to implement some of your beautiful teachings. And I am so grateful for you and all that you do to empower us through what we have here as a gift already, our breath. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It would mean the world to me if you would share today's episode with someone you feel would enjoy it. And don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment.